We're back to the Gemara. Okay, we're holding by the last case, and then we're going to get on something else regarding what we've been discussing. The Mishnah tells us that if a person wants to marry two sisters simultaneously, he's married to neither. Because we have a principle, anything which cannot take place consecutively cannot take place simultaneously. So Gemara asks the question, a person slaughters a toda. Harei toda d'les betos, the third white line. V'lesa nam b'zeh achazeh. If you slaughter the animal and you have 40 loaves of bread, when you slaughter that animal, the loaves become consecrated. And they take on the same level of kedusha as the korban itself, what we call kedusha zaguf. What about if he takes 80 loaves? And he says, I want to slaughter the animal, and the 80 loaves should all be chalos toda. They should all be associated with the korban. So we'll see in a moment. There's one opinion. All 80 become kadosh. They become consecrated. So the question is, if he slaughters the toda and you only have 40, where did you have 40? And afterwards he said, well, I want the additional 40 to become chalos toda. Can they become? I'll tell you what the difficulty over here. I mean, the whole basis for even asking the question is not a question. Because if the only way you could elevate anything from kedushas damim, we discussed here, to kedushas haguf, to take on the same sanctity as the korban is only through the act of shechita, correct? Through the act of shechita. So therefore, if I slaughter the animal and I have 40, why did the 40 kadosh? Because the shechita. After I do the slaughtering and I say, well, I want the additional to be kadosh. I mean, there's no way to bring it to kedusha. Yeah, but it's for a different reason. B'zeh chazeh. You know, you have so much money to purchase something, and you don't have more. So if I have 40, I have $5 I could afford to pay for it. But if it's a $10 item, I could only buy, if two, I only have enough money for one. Right? So if you have $10, you can buy two. But if you have 5, you can only buy one. So if that's the case, right now I have 10, so I can buy two. So later, if I only have 5, why could I only buy one? If I could have 10, it's not comparable. Shechita is the only thing that could bring it from one level to the next level of kedushas haguf. So if you slaughter out when you have 80, all 80 become kodesh. Right. Once you slaughter it, the mechanism to bring it to kedusha is no longer there. No, that's the question. That's the basis for the question. According to Chizkiah, when you slaughter the animal and you have all 80 become chalos toda. But why? But it's b'zeh chazeh, it doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. Because you don't have the shechita any longer to sanctify it. There's no after. There's no after. That's my question. It's not comparable. No. But I did an act of kiddushin. I gave him the second one. Well, so why doesn't it affect it? Because the Torah doesn't want you to be married to two sisters. So therefore, when you marry two sisters simultaneously, it's something the Torah doesn't want. But over here, it has nothing to do with this. What we discussed earlier. The Torah says, I mean, it's a similar question before. If you call 10, 10, and then you call the 11th 10, it means nothing. So why, when you call the 11th 10, why does it mean nothing? Because the Torah says the 10th is Meiser. The 11th is 11th, you just happen to be calling it 10. Right? But yet it says that they both come out simultaneously, they're both affected. But over there it's different, because one's Meiser, one is Shlomim. There the question is a different question. See, there you could make Shlomim after Meiser. So there the question is, but it should mean nothing. Since factually the words were Meiser, they both cannot be Meiser. So why should it have any value? There the question was a different question. You understand what we discussed yesterday. If two animals come out simultaneously through that passageway, and you say 10, one is Meiser, one is Shlomim. We don't know which is what. The fact of what did you say? You said Meiser. But if you say Meiser on the 11th, so even though we have factually one is 11, but you're calling it Meiser, it's Shlomim. We don't know which is what. So why, when you call 10:10 and 11:10, why is 11 nothing? That was the Gemara's question. So the Gemara answered. Of course, if you call 10:9 and you call 11:10, then 11 is Shlomim. Right? That's what the Gemara answered. But here, this is even more extreme. I mean, unrelated to what we're discussing. Because you need shchita to give it kiddush saguf. So that's automatic. That attaches the bread with the animal. The kavanah is that I want these loaves to be the loaves of this associated with this animal.
So the person brings the loaves and the animal.
Right.
Together. And the moment the shechita happens, it
Automatically affects it.
So
Correct.
Bringing 80 loaves
And
and an animal.
an animal. So Chizkiah says all 80 are kadosh. So he says, but how could all 80 be kadosh? If he would take 40 and he'd slaughter it, and then he would take another 40 afterwards, nothing. They would be nothing. Of course they'd be nothing, because you no longer have shechita. So it has. So I'm saying it seemingly has no relevance to the whole discussion.
So how did the 80 just become kodesh just because?
Because of the shechita.
Because the shechita, nothing to do with achar zera.
Right. Right.
So
Maybe just
Yeah. Over here, it seemingly has no relevance to the whole.
there's no achar.
What else is it? Otherwise, it's not zeh chazeh.
But the shechita is what makes the kodesh.
He says, I want the shechita to consecrate 80. What's the second case? Is achazeh. He said it takes 40. Shechita consecrate. Then he brings another 40. So of course it's me. Well, there's nothing. Even the first 40. What elevated it to its level of kedusha? It was only the shechita. I just want to bring this out. This is important. This is a side point, but just to understand the halacha. I mean, the animal's been consecrated. It's been consecrated. Right? It's kedusha off the animals. But when you do the shechita somehow activates a kedusha in the bread. It brings it to another level. How does it bring it? See, if the shechita itself is an act of consecration, as it consecrates A, B, being associated, also becomes consecrated. But if the animal is fully consecrated, how does the shechita, how does the consecrate the 40? Even the 40, how does it do? Therefore what? But how does it work? When you slaughter a toda, was the toda pre-slaughtering, or did it already have kedushas mizbeach? So what does the shechita do to the toda? It makes it... No, it is a toda. It qualifies it to be sacrificed. You're not. Again. The loaves are not put on the mizbeach. The loaves of bread are eaten by the Kohen and by the one who brings the toda. Okay? So we're saying when you do the shechita on the animal, the toda assumes the identical kedusha as the animal, which we call kedusha saguf. That's what we're saying. I'm asking, how does it work? If you tell me the act of shechita is an act of consecration for the animal, it says it consecrates A, what's associated with A also becomes consecrated. But if A is fully consecrated, how does just an act which has no consequence regarding what you're doing to the animal, how does it affect B if A is not affected? It's purely ritual, meaning preparing it to be able to be sacrificed. I know. How do we understand the mechanics? How does it work? How does it become consecrated? The designation is already based on the consecration.
Right. It's consecrated the animal.
So it's toda. It's called toda, this animal.
But the shechita hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
This animal's status has changed. Let's suppose the man changes his mind. You can't simply take that animal.
No, he has to wait. No, of course not. He has to wait for it to become blemished. He redeems it, but that money...
He has to exchange it.
No, not exchange. No exchange. No, definitely
So
not.
that animal's status has been affected
How has it been affected?
by the consecration.
Definitely. So now it's toda.
It's a different status. Okay.
It was non-consecrated, now it's consecrated.
But it's before the shechita takes place.
Okay.
Now, in that interim period, what's the status of the loaves?
Kedushas domim.
What does that mean?
Kedushas domim means it's considered an asset designated to, and it has a potential to be attached to the korban.
Can remove those loaves and consume them.
No, you have to redeem them, but they're redeemable.
They're redeemable.
They're redeemable.
So now,
Once you slaughter the animal, those loaves are no longer redeemable.
so now, the fact that he's bringing this animal has once he's designated the animal, a change in status also happens to these loaves.
No, only when you slaughter the animal.
No, before the slaughter.
No. Let's say you didn't. No, let's say you didn't consecrate the animal. You weren't magdish the animal.
No, I'm saying you've consecrated.
No, I'm showing you. You have no animal. The animal's coming in 3 weeks from now. I take 40 loaves and I say these loaves should have kedushas toda. No, now, right at this moment, they should have kedushas toda. It's called kedushas demei toda. The sanctified means monetarily, the value is that it will be associated. It already takes on a consecrated status, but the consecrated status means that it's not yet fit for the mizbeach, but it has a kedusha. It already is considered hegdish's asset to be used for the mizbeach.
Good. So what we've established is that the status of the loaves changes too before the shechita takes place.
Through consecration, of course.
So good.
We agree. Everything is agreeable.
Right. But the man brought 80.
I'm talking before the 80. You're coming to answer the other question.
No, I'm staying with what we.
No, what is the mechanics of slaughtering the animal? How does that elevate the loaves to another level? If slaughtering is an act of consecration, so we can understand, as it consecrates the animal, anything associated with the animal takes on another level of consecration. But if we're saying the animal is fully consecrated, because it's already kedushas mizbeach, so how does the act of slaughtering the animal, how does that elevate, how is that the equivalent of consecration for the loaves? It's been a toda before you slaughter it. No, the animal's toda. The animal has kedushas haguf of toda. It's called kedushas mizbeach. It has the sanctity of the mizbeach already. The loaves do not have kedushas mizbeach. So I'm going to explain how it works. So we once mentioned that the Gemara says if a person makes a neder, he says this loaf of bread should assume a status of neder. Okay? And the neder, you have to verbalize the neder. This loaf of bread, and he uses the terminology, so it's off limits. Then I take another loaf, I say, let loaf B be like loaf A. So the halacha is, that's called hatfosa. Because since you're attaching B to A, you say B should be like A, B assumes the identical status as A. Okay? So B is no less prohibited with a neder as A. Okay? It's based on a pasuk. What happens if a person takes a piece of non-kosher meat, takes a piece of kosher meat, says, I want B to be like A. Doesn't work. It means nothing. It's meaningless. Why? Because when the Torah speaks about Nedorim, the Torah says, Lindor Neder. Wait. Lindor Neder. If you're associated with something that was a Neder, then what you associate with the Neder assumes the status of Neder. But something which is Davar Osur, which the Torah prohibited, it's unrelated to your verbalization, then it doesn't become Osur. Okay? Does not become Osur. Now, a Bechor, the firstborn of an animal, Peter Rechem, it's Kodesh. Why is it Kodesh? Why is it consecrated? Torah consecrates it. So, and the Rambam rules that if you take a piece of meat, and you take a piece of meat of Bechor, and you say, B should be like A, B assumes the status of A. So they ask on the Rambam, but Bechor is Dover Osur. The Torah creates that classification of Kedusha. So why, when he says B should be like A, why does B assume the same status as A? It's like taking a non-kosher piece of meat and saying B should be like A. That's the question he asked on the Rambam. Okay? So there's a famous answer from the Netziv that it's true when you consecrate an animal that has Kedusha. The Bechor has Kedusha naturally. when you do the shechita adds another level of sanctity. It's called kedusha sakin. Because when you slaughter the animal, what happens to the blood? When you cut it at the neck, the knife is associated with every bit of blood in that animal. It's mekadosh the dam. It's called kedusha sakin. You understand? So it's bringing it to another level. As a result of that, the whole korban has now not only kedushas bechor, it has the added kedusha that was done by the one who slaughtered it.
But when would you make the comparison?
One second. One second. The Gemara says by a mincha. What is a mincha? The Kohen takes a palmful, what we call a kmitza, right? Takes the kmitza, and what does he do with it? Does he put it straight onto the mizbeach? He puts it into a ministering vessel. And then he transports it, then he puts it on the mizbeach. The kmitza is the equivalent of shechita. Putting it into the bowl is the equivalent of receiving the blood after the animal is slaughtered, transporting it, sprinkling it. Okay? So we have the equivalent regarding the mincha. So Mara says, when you slaughter an animal, what type of, let's say you receive the blood in an ordinary vessel, not in a kli sharis. It's not valid. So Mara asks, why isn't it valid? It's consecrated. The answer is, because even though it's consecrated, you need kedushas kli. It has to be received in the kli, in a menstruing vessel, before you put it on the mizbeach. So the Gemara says the same thing. Although, when you made the mincha initially, when you took the kmitza, out of what kind of vessel did you take the kmitza? It was a kli sharis already. So the kli sharis brought it to a level of kedushas haguf. Now you take the palmful. Now what do you put it into? Again, you have to put it in the kli sharis because it's no different than dam. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. Therefore, that's what he says. That's what the Siv says. So when the Rambam says, you say piece B, meat should be like piece A. That's the another. It's not the also. It's true. If you take two animals, a bechor and an ordinary, and say let animal be like A, it's nothing. Because the consecration of the bechor is a Torah consecration. It's not related to the person's consecration. But the Ram is speaking about chatichas basar, a piece of meat of bechor and a piece of ordinary meat. And he says B should be like A, therefore B assumes A, because A has an added level of consecration due to the shechita of the one who slaughtered the bechor. So what I'm saying here, when you slaughter the toda, if it's just an act of slaughtering, then the chalas toda would not be affected, because it's not an act of consecration. But when you slaughter the animal, it is it's an additional act of consecration. As a result, anything which is associated with the animal is affected by that new level of consecration. That's why it's elevated from kedushas domim to kedushas mizbeach. Okay? No, that's it. It ends right there. No, because it's an act of consecration. If it would be an act of consecration, if it's not, how does the challah assume now a consecrated status? If it's not an act of consecration, you're connecting it. Therefore, what? How does that elevate it? The animal was previously consecrated. If you eat, the Gemara says in Zvachim that when a Kohen eats, he's supposed to add mustard to the quantum. When they would eat the meat of the chatos or the osham, they put mustard on it. Why? Because it enhances the taste. Because when you eat something, it should be in the tastiest form, because that's called lamoshcha. You're giving honor to the food. You're not just swallowing it. You're enjoying it. And that's an enhancement of the mitzvah. It's like hiddur mitzvah. Right? That's what it is. I forgot that was associated with what you were asking. Okay. It's not hiddur. It's not hitter. If the act itself is not an act of consecration, how does that consecrate the bread? Oh, that's what I was going to say. The mustard did you eat with the kosher? Because the mustard is on your sandwich. Does the mustard become kadosh? Because it's associated with your meat sandwich? No. You eat chulin mustard with meat that has kedusha. So because the bread is associated with the animal, how does that make the bread, give the bread the same status as the animal? Association alone is not enough to make it. Unless the act of slaughtering is an act of consecration. Since consecration, anything that's part of the associated with the animal becomes consecrated. You redeem it. Then you redeem it. It's like it becomes tummy. Let's it becomes tummy. That's what you redeem it. Once it's the kli, then you have to burn it. The point. No, not the baked product, the baked loaf. There's no case of flour. The only time shchit is mekadosh is lechem. Mincha is unrelated to an animal. Mincha is a meal offering. It's brought as a meal offering.
What would the order be? You do the shchita and then make the bread.
No.
Make the bread earlier.
Of course, the 40 loaves exist. They exist. And when you slaughter the animal, what? No. Kedusha is domim.
He makes this bread in his home?
Yes, his law, he can make it wherever he wants to make it.
And specific size of the loaves? Or
Okay, yeah, it has to be some specific weight and so much flour each one has to be. Like a mincha has to be a certain amount of flour. Consecrate the animal? No. When he slaughters the animal. No. No, I did not say that. I said when you slaughter the animal.
I got that, but before the slaughter, I said if you consecrate the animal and now you change your mind, you cannot just take that animal. That animal's a different.
Correct.
You have to. Now I asked the same question about the bread.
You could.
He consecrated the animal.
And
what's the status of the bread?
And
I just changed my mind and take the bread and consume it.
You
said no.
wait, because he already consecrated the bread independent of the animal. He consecrated for the toda independent of the animal. Before he even did the act of consecration to the animal. It's consecrated, but at a lesser level. It still could be redeemed.
The man has got his 40 loaves of bread and his animal, and he's coming to the
Beis Hamikdash.
And he's going through the procedure. He consecrates his animal.
Good.
Okay. What is the status of the bread?
Did he consecrate the bread yet?
Is it a separate thing that he has to do?
Definitely.
It's automatic.
He has to do a separate act of consecration to the bread.
What does that mean? How does he do it?
He says these breads should be chalos toda, should be designated for that animal.
And then
Wait. What level of kedusha? What kedusha does it have?
Whatever it is, it's a change.
From non-consecrated to consecrated.
And so therefore, this bread is no longer
Ordinary bread.
ordinary bread.
Correct.
Now, if the man is bringing an animal and 80, and he says that procedure,
Wait a sec. Wait.
how does it take effect on the 80? Because the 80 is too much. How does the bread get changed in its status before the shechita takes place?
You could consecrate 10,000 loaves.
No, but it's connected to the.
No, there's no problem then. It doesn't have to be connected.
But
You
that's
say
what he's doing.
no. You say
It's one. He's got one.
you say
procedure.
toda. I want to bring 10,000 loaves of toda. You may have to bring multiple animals to work out the numbers.
No, but that's not what he wants.
Doesn't make a difference. When it's kedusha is domim, it makes no difference. Makes no difference.
I would have thought that nothing happened to the bread.
But Rechizkiah says all 80 loaves are consecrated.
That I don't understand why he would say that, because
Question, Kasha.
that's like that's like saying I want to marry two women.
That's the Gemara's question.
And so
That's the Gemara's question. That's the Gemara's question. Two women doesn't work.
it doesn't work.
But here it does work. So what's the difference? Evidently, there must be another difference. Not because something which cannot follow consecutively cannot happen simultaneously. There must be another reason for that, which the Gemara is going to say in a moment. There's another way to understand it. Because if it works here, why doesn't it work there? Evidently, there must be another reason why it can't happen with two sisters.
Because the man, let's suppose this man is not a knowledgeable man, and he just made a mistake. He thought 80 is the number.
Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference.
So he's making a mistake. He's bought twice as many. So why should...
But when we started with the two sisters, you'd say, we understand why, if you're married to one sister, why you're not able to marry the other sister, because you're already married to the sister. But you're marrying two single women, and neither are your wives, maybe both of them should become your wives. Right? That's where we began. So Gemara says no, because it's clear that if they cannot take place consecutively, they can't take place simultaneously. So Gemara says, so what about the 80 loaves? If you consecrate 40 and slaughter the animal and want to take another 40, once you've done it, the other 40 have no relevance. I'm not addressing my original question. My original question is still a question. Because if the procedure to bring it to the other level is the shechita, once the shechita takes place, how is it supposed to be consecrated afterwards? But maybe at the time that you do the shechita, and I say, I want all 80 to be lachmei toda, maybe they do assume that level. But why do they assume the level? Well, let's explain it again. They assume the level, the Torah says 40. 40 loaves are associated with the korban, not 80. But since he said 80, he wants it all to take place, and since you can't differentiate which of the 80, so therefore we say they both assume it. They both assume the status of lachmei toda. Well, that's Chizkiah saying. That's what he says, Chizkiah. No, because since there's no way to differentiate between 40 and 40, he says 80, so therefore all 80 become. That's what the Gemara is saying right now. That's the way the Gemara understands Chizkiah. It's like the two sisters. If the Torah wouldn't say, you can marry your wife's sister, but if she's not yet my wife, they're both single women, and I want to take place, maybe you could marry both of them. It'll take effect because there's no way to differentiate between A and B. When the kiddushin takes effect, neither are married. Then neither are your wives. So maybe they're both your wives. Wait a second. I want you to listen to what I'm saying. But how do we show that? Because since if you're married to one, the Torah doesn't want you to be married to the other sister. So from there we see the Torah doesn't want you to be married to two sisters. But that's the concept. Something which cannot be consecutive cannot take place simultaneous.
So the Torah doesn't want you to bring 80.
Why? And what's the proof to that? What's the proof? Because if you slaughter the animal with 40, you can't bring another 40 afterwards. That's what the Gemara says. Wait a second, but again, I'm not answering my question. Then that's a real difficulty.
The way that I would have said something different, though, not knowing that. I would have said that would be Baal Tosef. And the Torah is clear when it says that the mitzvah is performed in a certain way. Don't add to the mitzvah. Period. 20 is no good. Baal Tigra, 80 is no good. Baal Tosef. Finished. It's 40. Now, if you didn't bring 40, you've messed it up.
Okay. You would have said Baltosif, but the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara has no relevance to Baltosif. And if it's Baltosif, therefore what?
It's like bringing 5 species. What have you done? Okay.
No, because they have. So you have a question. You've altered the profile of the mitzvah. So once you alter the profile, it's not the mitzvah any longer. You have a question. Good question.
So that's why it doesn't work.
But Chizkiah says it does work.
I understand. That's why I'm...
Okay, so good. Leave it there. So you have a question. But my question is a different question. My question is, the whole question doesn't begin. How could 80 be associated with the animal? If you would slaughter the animal with only 40 and want to bring another 40 afterwards, the other 40 afterwards are not called lachmei toda. Of course they're not called lachmei toda. Because that question I'm not answering. That question's a question. Right?
Unless all 80 were designated for toda, and then you designate 4 toda, and then after you slaughter
You can't do. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. But we're talking about Kedushas Haguf. If you want to designate 1,000, they're all designated. It means nothing. Okay, let's go a little further. Chizkiya Kochile. No, David. Chizkiya says Kochile Arbon Mitoch Shmonim. Chizkiya says they're not all 8 consecrated. But since there's no way to differentiate, see, before we said when you marry 2 sisters simultaneously, although he says I want both to be simultaneous, but since he said you want to marry, one of them is going to be married. Because Chizkiya says 40 of the 80. When I say I want all 80, since it can't affect all 40, this addresses all 8 Baltosif, and there's no way to determine which one, 40 of the 80 are consecrated, have the same status as the Toda. So then, so if that's the case, so why by 2 sisters? Why do we say he's married to neither? Let him be married to one, and we don't know which one. So that's a good question. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan Amar lo kachi le'arboim mitoch shmonim. Rabbi Yochanan says no. That if there's no way to differentiate, you don't know which one, it's neither happens. Neither happens. Like the sisters. The Toda is like what we said before by the marriage. And as he's not married to either, neither of the 40 are consecrated. But it's a rationale. It's the same rationale. The Torah says there's no such thing as 80. So the act is nothing. The Torah says you cannot be married to 2 sisters. Therefore, it's nothing. Neither are married. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Chizkiya says no. It's true, you can't have 40, but since he wanted to do an act of consecration, so therefore, it has to affect something. What is affected? 40 of the 80 are affected. Which of 40? We're not sure which 40. So the sisters, we're not sure which sister you're married to. But one of the sisters is married. Same thing. No, but then we have a problem. But the Mishnah. So Chizkiya is going to have another reason why in the Mishnah he's married to neither.
So he's not saying that he's married to one sister.
Who? We don't know what Chizkiya will say regarding the sisters. The Gemara now is going to explain Chizkiya differently. That it has no relevance to our whole discussion before.
So he may say no sisters.
He may say no. So the Gemara says, Lavit Marlo, what's the base? Haven't we explained? Amrib Shuben Levi. Hakol Modim, Kol Hechad Yom Kachi le'arbom tov shmonim kachi. If a person would explicitly say, I hear 80 loaves, and I want 40 of the 80 to be the loaves of the Toda, if he would say that. And he doesn't identify which. Everybody agrees that 40 of the 80 assume the same status as the animal. Lo yikachu. What does he say? What happens if he says, Lo yikachu arbom elim kain kachi shmonim? Lo kachi. He says, I don't want 40 to be consecrated unless all 80 are consecrated. Then he said nothing. Because there's no such thing as a Toda that has 80 loaves. Everybody agrees. So if he says 40 of the 80, so you're not sure which 40. Right? You're not sure which 40. But he said 40 of the 80. But if he says only 80 and not 40, then it's nothing. Because there's no such thing as a Toda that has 80 loaves. So we explained it because we said when a person says that, he doesn't mean 20%. That's exactly what we're saying. The Gemara will say that in a moment. The Gemara will say that in a moment. We're saying where he says it explicitly. If he says 40 of the 80, everybody agrees 40 of the 80 is. I want all 80, everybody agrees no, it's nothing. That's like saying I want 20%, 20 or nothing. Then it's nothing. It's nothing. It's not Meiser.
That's right. But on a practical level, when a man says I want 40 of the 80, but they're all mixed up, what do you do at that point? How do you proceed?
What you do, you say whichever 40 or not I redeem. So that means that what remains is chulin. So you have 40 which are lachmi toda, which have the same status as the korban. The other 40 are just ordinary bread.
So you redeem 40, and there's only 40 left.
Left, so you eat all 80. And you're
are
not sure
the
which.
40 or the good 40.
Right, exactly.
The person come along with an animal and say, I'll take those 40 for my...
No, you don't know which ones. You don't know which are the 40. You don't know which are the 40.
They're both going to end up being left with children. The question is, who's up?
He wants to do
Split them
that.
up, and you have 40 and I have 40.
Not a problem. Not a problem. But let's say you want to take 40 out of Yerushalayim now. Let's see that he can't take them out because he's not sure which it's a suffix. Okay. Lo nechu, so where are they arguing? If they both concur in these two cases, so where's the argument Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan? Ela b'stam. He didn't explain what he meant. He said 80. Mar sovel achrayis ko mechavi. One, when he said 40 of the 80, he meant that if anything should happen to 40, the other 40 should replace the original 40. So it's like, it's Hegdish on a Tanai. Exactly. That's what he meant. Omar Savano, the Korban God, the Kumachavim. Rabbi Yochanan says, when he says 80, it's not to guarantee that it ultimately will be 40. He meant, I want a Korban of 80. But there's no such Korban of 80 loaves. So if that's the case, it's like you want to be married to two sisters. It can't be, so therefore it's nothing. It's nothing. So now the Gemara asks a question.
Don't we go with the
What times?